I'm going to start in the late 60s, the late 1960s in the US, and tell you a story about Dr. Fox. Now, Dr. Fox was a famous guest lecturer who traveled around the great American universities. And the special thing about Dr. Fox was that he was this kind of teacher that everyone loved. He was the kind of teacher that made his students dazzled. He used his body language, he used his intensity and the voice and the eyes, and made his topic really, really exciting. And so he quite soon became a name, and they wanted him to come, and the professor sat in on his lecture, and everyone really thought that this was a great teacher. Now, imagine the scandal when it turned out that Dr. Fox wasn't a teacher at all. In fact, he was an actor. He was an actor who had found a paper and with a popular science topic, learned it by heart and used his acting talents to dazzle his audience. Now, much can be said about this story, but I think that it raises two very important questions. First, do we as teachers need to dazzle our students in the same way as Dr. Fox? And secondly, is the Dr. Fox presentations, is that the kind of teachers that our students actually need in order to graduate with competencies to meet future challenges? Now, welcome to this speech. I will talk you through the narrative of university teachers about change, what good teaching means today and what it meant yesterday, and a little glance at the future as well. I've been working with faculty development and educational development for the past 20 years. And we have seen a shift during that period, a shift from the ideal teacher as the Dr. Fox, the sage on the stage, to being more of a guide on the side. So, traditionally, we have seen the great teacher as the expert, the professors that knows it all, that knows it the best. And the focus has been on what we teach, the content. And if we look at the novice teachers, this is most often where they start, focusing on the content that we should supposed to teach our students. Now, this is of course important, but we also know that it's more to teaching than just focusing on the content. And well, related to the massification of higher education in the 1960s, it became increasingly important for professors to know a little bit more about how to teach, to learn more about the presentation skills and become skilled in the classroom. So when we started seeing initiatives of teacher training in the 60s and 70s in Sweden, the teaching skills was what was focus. And for a long period we saw a body of, say, practical knowledge that was growing, where we focused on what teachers should do and not to do. And there was a lot of important, of course, that it was important for teachers to know that, if I take a textbook and I make a copy of that, and I have a long text, it's Times New Roman, size 12, and then I put it on the overhead, it will be really difficult for my students to read. It will actually be really difficult for them to see what it is I'm trying to the message that I'm trying to convey at all. That could be really good practical tips, of course. And of course it's a good practical tips for teachers to know that if they need to use the board, they also need to turn towards their students once in a while to see if they're still with them. Now, in one of the courses, which I taught a long time ago, we also used to talk about how to use the pointer. And one tips was, for example, if you want your students to look, if you want them to see that you're engaged, you shouldn't use a body language like this. You should rather use a body language like this. Be open to them. And if you're really nervous, try to avoid this electronic pointer, because, you know, it will go like this and it will be really terrible. So instead, you could use a traditional pointer, you know, the long stick, and you can point with that. Now, these kinds of practical tips, do's and don'ts, always have a downside. And a few years back, this was 15 years ago, a colleague of mine, we went to a lecture, we sat in on a lecture with a teacher who had joined a previous course of ours, and it was a big lecture hall, and the screen was up there, and instead of using the pointer, she took up the traditional long stick, and she stood like this, and she was really too short, but she was jumping and jumping and jumping, trying to point to the screen, but she didn't reach. Afterwards, we came up to her and we were a bit confused. Why did you keep on jumping and using this pointer? And she said, well, I went to your course. You taught me that I should avoid doing this, so I used this traditional pointer instead. Now, my point is that every time we learn a technique, a method, and how to do, and the do's and don'ts, we also need to say, we need to accompany that understanding with the understanding of when is it suitable and when is it not so suitable. So, the how we can teach has its limitations unless it's accompanied with the reflection on teaching and learning. And for a long period, teachers were asked to reflect upon their teaching and learning. And we saw that research showed that if they start to think about how they understand teaching and more importantly, how they understand student learning, then we see that they can develop not only their skills in the classroom, but they start to pay attention to what their students are doing in the classroom. Now, the reflection on teaching and learning came with a big shift, major shift in pedagogy, going from focusing on teaching to focusing on student learning. And the idea that if we're going to be teachers, skilled teachers, good teachers, we need to consider who we are teaching, or more importantly, who is the learner, and see that our students have various needs. They come from different backgrounds, and there isn't one teaching method that will be superior, and there is no such thing as one size fits all. Rather, we have to have a flora of different kinds of methods and adjust them depending on our particular student needs. Now, today, I would say that we're in an era or in a time when we're not only considering who the student is and student learning, we also need to consider for each and one of our students, what are this particular student or this particular student group, what are they going to use this knowledge for in the future? So every choice that we make as teachers, we make dependent on who it is and what they are going to use the knowledge for. So in a way, we have broadened our perspective. It's not just about seeing individual students anymore. It's also about seeing their journey. And this means that we also need to spend a lot of time in figuring out where are the students, what do they know currently, thinking about when we do something, what kind of questions does that raise with the students? What kind of questions do we get from the students? And when should we provide them with feedback? Now, today I would say that we're more leaning on a good teacher to be the guide on the side. Now, for many teachers, this can be hard. And some teachers even think that this means that let's just send the students away. Now, the students have to figure out to find their own information, and then they come back and then they present, and we examine and assess our students. But on the contrary, I would say that being a guide means that we take our students in their hands and we follow, and we provide them with the necessary feedback along the way. So it's not abandoning our students, it's actually being there together with our students. Now, this also means that if I teach a course, if I teach one single session, if I have a piece of content, I need to figure out where in the student's journey does this small piece fit in? Where do I place this? I, of course, love my subject, and I feel that my subject area is the most important, as do most teachers. But what about my subject area in relation to this particular student group? Where does it fit in? So I have to slice, I have to dice, I have to do something other with my topic than just tell the story of my topic, rather considering where are the students and where does my topic fit in. Now, today, teaching goes beyond the discipline. We are living in an international, global world, and we not only have to teach the subject area. Today, coming to, for example, KTH and being a student also means that you open up your world and you learn a lot about, for example, sustainable development, or that you learn more about diversity. As teachers, we need to take into consideration other aspects besides our subject area. For some, this is seen as bureaucracy. For some, this is seen as a threat towards the academic freedom. But today it's also a part of being a teacher. And it's a part of the choices that we need to make as teachers. So teaching definitely goes beyond the discipline today. Now, what about teaching in the future? Will it all be about learning online? Will it all be about open learning, flexible learning, scalable learning? Will we all sit individually at home behind our screens, connected to the world, and discuss via computers? So hands up, who thinks that tomorrow, this is the tomorrow, teaching for tomorrow? How many think that this is the scene we will see? No, there is no hands raised here. I think that we will, based on the research and the body of understanding we have today about learning, I think that we will definitely use digital aids much more in the future. But I don't think that we will sit individually behind our screens. On the contrary, I strongly believe that the campus will be even more important, that working together collaboratively is something that we need to do in order to actually be able to fulfill our teaching mission. Now, along this journey of change, we have seen a lot of different teaching methods like problem-based learning or problem-oriented or challenge-based learning, group work, everything that has to do with collaboration that we're trying to accomplish for our students. And I think that the teachers of tomorrow, they will see the need to collaborate even more in order to see the whole journey. This journey, to be the guide on the side, we need to talk to each other as teachers, and we need to work collaboratively in negotiating what should each student, each program encompass for the future. Now, campus. This is my welcome gift coming here for a little bit more than 1.5 years ago. This, for me, represents the Swedish fika tradition. And I believe that going into the future, becoming more and more digital, the Swedish fika tradition will definitely be something that we will embrace even more. And that talking to each other will become even more important, so that the good teacher of today makes sound decisions of not only who to teach, the content, also the purpose of one single teaching occasion, of course, one single learning activity, and that together can decide what kind of method, what kind of strategy we should use for our students. And with that, I'd like to say welcome to the next generation of students coming to KTH. We look forward to seeing you, and I hope that you also get a taste of these nice cakes as I did. Thank you very much.